Hello everyone, welcome to another extra episode in the Star Trek series of Orinda Talks. It is a special episode today because it will be the last recap of Star Trek Strange New World for now, and that's why I decided to make a video episode of it. Now, let me tell you, it was a hell of a season. And I think Star Trek Strange New Worlds has one of the best first seasons of all Star Trek series. It brought us back what Star Trek really is. And I don't say that because a lot of people see Strange New Worlds also as a canon version series again, but it is just like it felt really Star Trek again. And I have said it before, if you see Star Trek Discovery and Picard, it took me a lot longer to be in that vibe of Star Trek. And I really have said it before and I will do it again. They did a really good job with Strange New Worlds. And although as a tracker I had expectations of it, and what I saw was that it was even more than what I expected. The storyline was good, the sets were good, the actors were good. Gonna say it again, hate to lose Hammer, but okay. And I have said before in all my recaps of Strange World now, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know or don't want to talk about the Strange New World, please watch this after you have seen those episodes, or because there was a problem with airing problem in a lot of countries, here in the UK as well, but I found a way to stay up to date, and one of the reasons I can do the finale now because I already can see it. So this was a very, very amazing episode. And I know there are a few of you who disagree with me, but this was really, I really loved it. It's also the introduction, of course, of Captain James T. Kirk. And although I thought he would be first a lieutenant, they already put him in as a captain of the Farragut. Cute tiny shippy, but okay. I think a little bit like the Miranda class. Tough shippy. And the whole aspect and the whole sphere of this episode was not only finale of season 1, but also like the coming back of Pike's struggle with the knowledge what his future will be. And there is, I think it's a cruel way to know your end. And in this episode, they really started to say, okay, if you are going to change the future, you will change everybody's future. And I think Pike understood that in the end. And although I know he would be scared of being that ant, it's it is what it is. Guys, sorry for the light because I see my screen is very bluish, but that's just the light how it's falling now into this room. So apologize for that. Um, so Pike has the same nightmare that he is having for last year, and we see he can't get through with it, or it's still very difficult for him. And I don't think it's especially for his life, but it is more like he wants to save those kids and those people from that accident. And I think he's racking his brains out of it how he can prevent that. With the consequences that he's going to stay alive too, and he is changing the whole future. Not only his future, but their future, the future of Starfleet, the future of how everything is going to be. So we also see that this episode is really about the Romulan and the Starfleet war. And of course we know what it is. We have seen it in Star Trek Online. They made a really good story arcs about that. And I think we see now what the Romulans have become. And at the moment that they see the first image of the Romulan, maybe even Riemann, but Romulan, they see the resemblance of Vulcans. And they were looking at Spock with the knowledge of, dude, what the heck? And Spock also told them, guys, I'm exactly as surprised as you are, and I have no idea what's going on. So it is really I think, I don't want to say that the crew is feeling betrayal, but it is more like a shock of, okay, we have Spock for a long time and we see Romulans now, and it's like he betrayed us. Of course, he never knew this, but when he knew, and we know that of course in the later TNG series and in I don't think in TOS, but I think there was also in a movie, Star Trek movie, that and the J.J. Abrams movies. There was that scene that Spock was telling, and it was also in Star Trek Online, by the way. Spock was telling, ever since I know that Romulans are descendants and some kind of a branch of Vulcan, he tries to reconcile those two groups, but that's gonna be a big job. And I think after he served on the Enterprise, he became an ambassador, and after that he started doing what he was doing. He was even living among the Romulans. So in one way that's a little bit weird, but okay. And now I'm asking also myself, what would his father think about that, or other people he knows. So, and something else about Romulans, guys. That commander of the Romulan ship, let me see, I wrote that down. Didn't he play also a commander in the Hitchhiker's Guide of the Galaxy? Was it that? Yeah, the Hitchhiker's Guide of the Galaxy. That was him. And now I need to go back to my notes. So we see that the Romulans really are angry, and we know from Sela that the Romulans are very angry of the Vulcan, and especially to Spock, because Spock had promised to save New Romulus, and he didn't do that. He failed. As you guys also can see in the New Romulan and Iconian War story arc in Star Trek Online. If you visit my YouTube channel, my private YouTube channel of Orenda Deister, and or the Knights of Nolda Fleet YouTube or Facebook group, you can watch my videos back that I played of this particular story arc, so you can follow the storyline, and 9 of the 10 times I won't skip video. So that's why people always ask me, well, can you do that story arc line of that story arc line, because I really like to know. Normally they skip it by themselves because they don't have the patience for it, but okay, I stream those things and I like to do it. I like the episodes, playing the episodes. So with Star Trek Online, we still have a little bit more background about that, and we see how, because the Romulans and the Federation has been in war for 100 years, a lot of young people don't know what it is without war. And what we saw in this episode is how that become. And the commander of the Romulan bird was telling the young sub-commander, you don't know the time without war, and I do. And it's really, you could really sense and really see what it did to both parties. And we also see later in the episode that sub-commander was taking matters in his own hands, because he was saying, well, you were weak like Starfleet, and we should attack now. Now we have the chance. And you just show merciless, and that is not the Romulan way. And so the commander took him apart and told him there was a time that we weren't in war, and it is time that your young ones are seeing what that is and experience what that is, because there was so much good, and I am so tired. And that's what he also said to Pike. I am tired of this endless war. And I think a lot of people will say the same, because it's really, it's already being too long. And I think the war has to be stopped, because there is a bigger enemy ahead, like the Borg, like the Herc, Dominion War, of course, etc. So that's it. So one of the begin scenes also is that Captain Bartel is visiting Pike again, and we know that she is more or less his girlfriend. What was for me very weird, because I don't think they are a good match, and eventually we will see that. And in the end of the episode, she came aboard to arrest Una because of her secret of manipulated genes like the augments. And that was what I was asking myself too. How could they know that? How could Starfleet know that if Pike also keep that a secret? So what has changed? And you could see that Pike was taking this very personally, because I think Una was his right hand. She was, in a way, the female version of him. And, it's what you can see of her is that they have this connection. And if you see Bartel and Pike together, they don't have that. And when Bartel ordered or had to arrest Una, Pike took it very serious, very personally. And I think that is also the end of the relationship between Pike and Bartel. Hope so, in a way. Because I really didn't think they are suitable for together, for each other. So we see them eat, and once again, Pike was cooking, and I think the woman who is with Pike is very, very lucky, because he's always cooking. So he was making some kind of a spaghetti, a la his mom's recipe, like just the leftovers and pasta and Parmesan cheese on it, and that was it. So she was very quick with eating and left. And I was thinking, why were you even in the neighborhood? Because, yeah, normally you would think, okay, they are both captains, so they have very different missions. And so the Enterprise needed to visit K7 to supply them and etc. And Commander Alsala was asking for those things for 5 years, and now he got it. And it was a very how can I say this? It was a very pleasant but also not pleasant conversation. And well, Una was there, Spock was there, and of course Pike and the commander of the station. And the son of the commander, Ma'at Al-Salah, was storming in, and his dad said, "Yo, dude, you know I am working. Don't do that, don't barge in." And Ma'at was very excited, and he said, "Oh, well, I just wanted to meet Captain Pike, and I want to join Starfleet, and I'm very excited, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, I want to become that." And so Commander Salah, Al Salah was apologizing for his son, and Pike asked the boy's name, and he said, well, my name is Ma'at Al Salah. And Pike froze of shock, because that was one of the children that will die in that very accident he saw the future with. And he excused himself and walked away, and Uno came after him, as you saw. That is one of the children who die in your dreams and in the vision you saw. And he said, yeah, I don't know what to do. I have to do something because I don't want him to die. He's still young. So Pike went to his chambers or quarters, and he was starting to write this letter to him to encourage him to go to Starfleet. But at the moment that that will occur, he needed to stay away. And he would write to all of those kids. And then somebody answered the question he had in his head. And it was Admiral Pike. And I thought he was the Rod of Khan uniform. What they upgraded, because it is a little bit different than we know from the movie. And I really love this uniform, I really do. I hope they are going to make this for cosplay, because I really would love to have it. That will be my second Admiral uniform. I have the Captain Picard Admiral uniform as well. So, yeah, we have to wait. I really love that uniform, I do. So Pike was very shocked, and he thought this was an illusion. And old Pike said, well, you need to take a good look and take a good moment, because this is the future now. If you are going to write those letters, the future is changing, and somebody else will take your place. So that was very confusing, and Pike was saying, who's going to take my place? But the old Pike didn't want to say that. And it's very hold on. It's very you could see how battled he really was. And I don't know if this is really Pike's doing, in the way of, I don't know, in one way he is that strong man we know, but in the other hand he is very sensitive, alert, and jumpy in a way, if I can say it like that. So the old Pike has this time crystal. And the old Pike said, well, you need to watch this, because you will see the future, how you're going to change it. So slowly Pike touched the crystal, and then he was at a ceremony, and it was a wedding ceremony, and he has to see and stay, okay, where the hell am I? And it appears that he was 7 years in the future. At the moment that he wants to consume the wedding ceremony, somebody, Spock was calling him, okay, everybody alert, red alert, everybody on his place, Captain Picard to the bridge. So, Pike went to the bridge, and Pike asked Spock what the hell's going on. And Spock didn't answer, and he said, well, Uhura will notify you with it. And that was really not Spock. It was like he was out of context. It was like, you remember that series episode with Tasha Yar and the Enterprise C? That Tasha was already dead, but came back in that episode as, I don't want to say mirror universe, but because they have to go back to their own time, Tasha went with the Enterprise C, and this was the same thing. So Spock was also in this period. Spock was Pike's number one, and later on, Pike was asking Spock of what happened to Una, and Spock reminded him, well, she's been arrested because of her betrayal, and the last 7 years she is like on a prison colony. What startled Pike as well, because Una was Una, and I can't remember that Pike ever said something about Aruna being a lion. So, Aurelian, sorry. So, Uhura informed Pike, okay, Outpost 4 is under attack. They have a ship that is shooting at them, but it shoots and it disappears. Later on in the episode, we know that it's the cloaking device, and they have phasers. The phasers? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So they went to set course to Outpost 4, and they want to help them, but before they were at Outpost 4, the Romulan ship appears and shoot again, and that destroyed Outpost 4, but also Commander Al-Salah. Pike, before that happened, Pike asked, well, is your son on Outpost 4? And that was a negative, and Pike was relieved. But at the moment that the Romulans appears again, Pike wants to shoot them, but they are out of range. So the Romulans cloaked again, and then the USS Farragut appears, and that was the moment I started to scream. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Captain James T. Kirk. A very young one. And of course, we already have seen pictures of James T. Kirk in Strange New World, but we never saw him actually be there. And I was shocked. Not in the way how he looked, but I actually liked this Captain Kirk. And everyone who knows me, and everyone who ever listened to a TOS episode of mine, they know I have some kind of a love-hate relation with him. He has his moments that he is a great captain. And we see that also in this episode. But it's a young Kirk and he had to learn a lot still. And Pike did that on a phenomenal way. I really loved it. It's like, well, they both learned. Like, you can't always use the diplomatic way of solving things. And although Pikes had shown Romulans how it can be, and especially with that Romulan bird of prey, I was really surprised. And I think if they hadn't shot, the Romulan fleet, if they hadn't shot that Romulan bird, I think that commander could be a very good ambassador for the Romulans. The praetor of the Romulan fleet. Oh my god, I hated that woman. Jeez. And I was agreeing with Bai when he said that. That arrogant attitude. Nah, not for me, it's but you know that commander of the Romulan ship, he had a role to play. He couldn't be especially showing his weakness, but also he wanted to end the war. And so a little bit coming back to Aurora, because this is what I also experienced in this season. It is like Discovery, they are enhancing and redoing uniforms, and so Aurora is wearing a uniform dress in the combination of the new TOS and Discovery uniform, and also the color of TOS. So I don't know. In one way, it's unique, and in one way, I say, okay, I like it. But in the other way, I don't, cause I think this is also a note that season 2 will be having other uniforms again than what we know already. So there was a moment that we saw a first picture of the Romulans, and we saw that the comparison with Vulcans, and everyone was really, I don't want to say upset, but they were really shocked that they had the same pointy ears, etc. And Captain Kirk was beaming over to the Enterprise. And before that, we see that Pike was calling for Samuel Kirk. And Pike was asking him, okay, tell me about your brother. So Samuel did. And he told him about Kirk with not always following the rules, that he doing his own plan, and Pike asked him also, could he start a Romulan war? And Sam was answering more or less, and I can imagine that would be very tough, because it is your own brother, but also he's a captain for nothing. He's a young captain, and we see that James T. Kirk still have a lot to learn, but he's brilliant. He's really brilliant. So Pike and his staff and Kirk had this little briefing to decide, okay, are we going attacking the Romulans or not? And almost everyone wants to attack, but Pike wasn't so sure. And then Pike came with an idea. Okay, first, because they couldn't attack the Romulans because it's so close to the Romulan border, and because they are in the neutral zone right now, they could shadow them. And if they parallel like this, shadow them, then the frequency will act like a sonar. So they could, when it will cross, that will be the Romulan ship. And so they did that, and before they crossed the Romulan border, they wanted to shoot it down. But when that happens, something was terribly wrong. It was the wrong place. They were on the wrong place. The Romulan bird was behind the Farragut and was it decloaked? I can't remember. But they were attacking the Farragut now. So what James Kirk did is that he made a looping. So he got behind them and they shot. And but Pike, Chris, why am I doing this? Kirk told Pike to shoot, but Enterprise was not close enough to hit them. So Kirk said, well, shoot at them, you will redirect the fire on us to you. So they did, and so they retracted the fire, but the Romulan, and I think I haven't seen it clear as this, but the fire plasma weapon reminds me of another species who use it, and I can't remember which species it was, especially when you play Star Trek Online. So okay, so Enterprise was hit by the plasma weapon, then the Farragut again, and the Farragut was almost totally gone. So they could beam over the crew of the Farragut just in the nick of time. And one of the last one who beamed over was La'an, and finally she let her hair down. She was a lot softer than we know her. I must say, I really love this aunt, La'an. And she hugged Pike, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you." And Pike was a little bit, I don't want to say shocked, but he was surprised. And she said, "Well, I didn't know you were a hugger, Lieutenant." And she said, "Well, I'm commander now. Don't you remember?" And then he asked of Una. And she didn't tell him. She was quiet because Kirk demanded a conversation with Pike. So they went to the reading room. And he said, "What the hell was that? You're supposed to shoot. You flinched. Why?" "It cost me my ship." And Pike answered, "Young man, you are a good captain, but a young one, and you still have to learn a lot." And so Kirk was, and that is one of the few times we see Kirk actually apologizing for his mistake. And so when they were on the bridge again, Pike decided to give Kirk a lesson. So he told Uhura to, "Okay, open the channel, see what I can do." So Pike offered a ceasefire for 2 hours with the Romulans. And at first, the Romulan commander was, "We don't need that, we are Romulan, blah 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 blah." But Pike said, "Well, you need repairs, as do we, because otherwise we can't go home, etc." So it's not only also with that they want to go home boat, but it is also necessary, and it gives them time to think of something. So the Romulan commander was complying to this, what was really new. And oh my god, that sub-commander, I really didn't like him. And he said, "Well, we need to strike now, they are weak and blah blah." And the commander took him apart and said, "Dude, you don't know this, and if we are attacking, it's an active war, and not only that, we are already in trouble, and we will be more than trouble with that." So they negotiate. The 2 hours will be up. And guys, what do you think about those new Romulan clothes? It's like the old Word of Khan uniforms. They made it, in my opinion, better. So that's very nice. And Um, it was really it was a nice touch because it was familiar, but it was also new. And I think that is what is very important in Strange New World. Strange New World is new, but has also a lot of reference to TOS, what I really like. So, Captain Kirk came in the reading room to talk again with Pike, and Spock was there to update him of the repairs, and he said, "Well, I'm going to the Jeffrey troops now to do um, those repairs myself." And when he was in the Jeffrey troops, we hear the voice of Scotty, and I was really thinking, "Is Scotty coming back?" And I said it in my last episode, podcast episode as well. Did they kill Hammer because they won't bring Scotty already in the mix? In one way, it would be fine because also Pike is also now on the ship. But okay, it's a risk. But it was really nice to hear Scotty. Really, it was. And if they are going to recast Scotty, I really am curious how he looks like. I really do. Meanwhile, the deadline of the ceasefire passed, and Subcommander I don't want to say negotiate with Pike, but just like he just talked with Pike about it, and Pike was having a little victory dance because he knew, okay, I have the Romulans talking now. And then there was a point that you could see that the Romulans are also again in two factions. The Tal Shiar and just the Roman Star Empire. And so, without knowledge of the Romulan commander, the Romulan fleet arrived with a very, very, very bitchy of a predator. I really didn't like her. I was really thinking, okay, dude, you can go. And she demanded right away the surrender of the Enterprise. And Pike was very smart. He knew exactly what he had to say, and also he showed the evidence of the attacking of the outposts, and he said, "Well, that is an act of war. We are in a neutral zone now, so what the heck." And I forgot to tell you this, guys. When Pike was talking to Kirk had an idea. And now we see the brilliances of Captain James T. Kirk. Kirk asked Pike if he could borrow a shuttle. And what he did, he went to the mine colonies, etc., and got those mine robots and ships, etc. And lady, you hear it, of course, the Romulans don't know how our ships looks like. Just they think that this will be the fleet. And yes, when Kirk arrived with them as a fleet, and it reminds me really with the end scene of season 1 of Picard, that Picard had the Romulan fleet there, and the other way, on the other side it was Starfleet. Oh shoot! I think they have it from there. So yes, this was also the first time Pike cursed, and he called Kirk the son of a bitch. And I think if Sam Kirk would hear this, he would laugh so hard. But we also see that Kirk already went his own way. But my question now also is, how did he become so quick a captain? And I was hoping that we would see Kirk as a lieutenant or whatever rank, to show the audience a little bit more of how his path to become a captain going. Because, and that's what I was saying, I expected him to be a lieutenant first, and after, in season 2 or 3, whatever, that he would come back. If Pike is going to retire, he would replace Pike on the bridge as the captain of the Enterprise. That was what I was thinking. But okay, they choose different way forward, and in one way it's a pity, because I would love to have seen more. Perhaps he's getting another ship and they will meet again. Who knows? And so that was the point also, that Kirk would beam over to the Enterprise, but at the moment that he wanted to do that, the Romulan fleet was attacking them. So what did Kirk? Kirk said, Enterprise retreat. And he sent all the mining bots and freighters, etc. to against the Romulan fleet. So they could retreat. Pike was on the Enterprise too, and they Enterprise would be hit very badly. And the Romulans were broadcasting shipwide, but also in the area of where they were, that Starfleet have provoked them, and they have now a declaration of war against it. Before happened, and before all the firing happened, and I forgot to mention that, the Romulan flagship put the Romulan ship that has accepted the ceasefire between them and the Enterprise. And Pike opened the channel and said, "What the hell are you doing? We can still save all your people, all your crew." And the Romulan commander said, "Thank you, but no thank you, but that's not our way. But in another timeline, I would call you my friend. And there will be no war, and we would end this war." And then the flagship shoot the Romulan ship. Meanwhile, wounded are coming into sick bay, and they wanted to retreat, but they had no engines. And that was a real drama. And then there was a blast. And they had engine now. Really strange. But okay. So Pike was asking where the hell did that blast come from? And they said, okay, in that section of the ship and in the U-tube, in the Jeffrey tube. So Pike's immediately thought was Spock. So he went to the sick bay. He comforted some of the patients. And then he saw Spock. Spock has only one leg. He had wounds all over. His face was covered with the blasts. And he looked at Nurse Chapel. Well, I think she is a doctor in this timeline because she wore the blue uniform. So she will be a doctor at the moment. And she tell, well, this and this and this is what Spock has. I don't know if she's gonna survive, but if she survives, she will be a totally different person. And that was the moment Pike also reminds himself that this is the lesson he had to learn. That's why the old Pike had sent him to this time, 7 years in the future. But also that he had to meet James T. Kirk. And, you know, I do think the actor who played Kirk, the young Kurt, did a good job. And like I said before, the same with Spock. Leonard Nimoy Spock is very different than the Spock of Strange New World. So also Ethan Peck is doing a good job. And so the old Pike appears again, and he said something. And he left the time crystal on the table. And Kirk was come in, and once again they have a conversation because Pike wanted to know where James A. Kirk was coming from and what he's been doing, etc. He offers him a drink. But we also got a hint that Pike says, if I need to recommend someone to become the next captain of the Enterprise, then it will be you. the Enterprise would be very lucky with you. So that was very nice to hear and to see. And then we saw Pike touching the crystal, and he was back in his own time. And the first thing he did was deleting that letter he wanted to send the boy, Mom, Al Salah. And so he went into his office, called Spock. He told Spock, "You're very important to me. I very appreciate you." And Spock said to him, "Yeah, you're also important to me." And it was the first time, guys, we hear Spock called the captain Chris. And you know, I think that is a very good. It was a very good scene because it was like you could see their friendship. And although, yeah, Spock is half Vulcan, half human, I think Pike also had a very strong connection with Spock, not only Kirk. So then Pike went back to the bridge, and he made some kind of a round to each bridge crew. He went to Ortega's, and he went to Michelle. Then he looked at Uhura, and he nodded to her, and Uhura was thinking, what's going on, Captain? And, oh, one thing about Uhura too. Did you notice, guys, that her earpiece, her ear thing was different than what we know from the TOS and in the former episodes? So, yeah, that was very different. It was, I find it more like a Bluetooth thingy for your ear. That's reminded me of it. And I think we hear, of course, the song with Making Memories. And I think that's a good piece because at that moment when Pike did his rounds, he did accidentally make a memory of the setting and the people he cared about. And, you know, it's very nice to see once again how a strong family the crew is. And then we got a message from Starfleet of, okay, we have a special message, and Captain Bartel was beaming over. And Pike and Una needed to come to the transport room. And that's when she informed them that Una was arrested because of her genetic employment and as an Illyrian. And that was what I was thinking. Why does Starfleet know that Una was an Illyrian? Because Pike didn't ever said something about it, so nobody should know. So how and why is Una arrested? So Pike wants to prevent that and attack more or less one of the red shirts. And it was Una who said, "I expected this, so let me go and I will handle this." And the face Pike made to Captain Bartel was, "I don't like this at all. What the heck?" And although she was telling him, "Well, Chris, I'm just doing my job," I think this was the end of the relationship between them. And in one way, it was very, how can I say this? It was, in one way, I think it's good because, like I said, I don't think that they suit each other. Although I must say, and I had that since the first time I saw Captain Battelle, she reminds me of Admiral Cornwell. And she has the similar looks, but also similar in how she appears and she does and she is. So this was my perspective of the finale of Strange New Worlds in the season 1. I loved it. I'm very curious what season 2 will bring. And I will probably do recaps again then, so keep in tuned. So I like to thank you for listening and watching this video episode. Join me next time for another episode. That episode will be airing next week, and that is about the character of James T. Kirk. And I will talk then with Trek Cannon, a good friend of mine. But he is someone who always watches every Star Trek episode from a canon perspective. So you can listen and subscribe to Orinda Talks on the YouTube channel, or you can join the Facebook group. And if you like to comment about this episode or talk with me about this episode, what I just recapped, you can do that on the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. But of course, for the people who are watching this stream, you can also do that in the chat. And I also like to tell you about my other podcast that I have. That's Girls Talking Trek. I also will, from time to time, stream Girls Talking Trek on here. And together with my co-host Amanda, we recap every 2 weeks a Star Trek episode, starting with Star Trek TNG. And all of the episodes will be recap in chronically following. And we will approach every episode with humor and a feminist look. And I think you're gonna listen right away how we mean that. Girls Talking Trek is also to listen, follow and subscribe on Anchor, Google Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcast streamings. On the Facebook group, of course, and the YouTube channel. So once more, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I will see you next week. Live long and prosper.